Hello, subscribe to my channel and don't forget to press the like button. Enjoy listening. I am a simple man. I make a living by operating a bulldozer. It's an honest living. And I have provided well for my wife, Marcy, and our two sons, 15-year-old Jason and 16-year-old Troy. We have a modest house, almost paid off, and enough money in the bank for the boys to go to college. Marcy and I have been married for 18 good years, or at least that's what I thought. I seemed to age okay, gained a little weight, lost some hair, and gained a few wrinkles. My job keeps me in decent shape, but my hands are a bit callous and rough. Marcy, on the other hand, has aged very gracefully. Her body seemed to fill out with age, and her hairstyle and overall appearance made her stand out. I was very proud she became my wife. She dressed well and knew how to take care of herself to look her best. So why do I doubt the state of my marriage? I suppose, like most guys, I became confident and content with how things were. I thought that if I was happy, then Marcy must be too. I never looked for trouble, and I never had any reason to suspect anything. I'm trusting by nature, which I suppose made me a bit gullible. For the past 6 months or so, Wednesday dinners seemed to be tastier than usual. I didn't know why at first, and it didn't seem unusual initially. Marcy always seemed cheerful and was happy to make a special meal for the family, and we all enjoyed it. Then I also noticed she was always dressed more casually on Wednesdays than usual. She wore sweatpants or some leisure wear, not the dress she'd leave the house in. Every other weeknight, she'd be in her regular clothes until bedtime. By the time Wednesday dinner came around, she'd already changed. I'm not one to snoop around. At the end of the day, I just toss my dirty clothes in the hamper and move on. Tonight, I just needed to look a bit deeper. I didn't even know Marcy owned black lingerie. God knows I've never seen her wear them. They were at the bottom of the hamper beneath damp towels. It looked like the towels were deliberately placed to cover them. She must have been sure I'd never looked there. She knew me pretty well. Maybe I should have taken them and checked. God knows for what, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wondered if it was all connected. The delicious Wednesday dinners, the early change of clothes, the new, fashionable lingerie. Sometimes I regretted not being such a simple, trusting fool. Since this had apparently been going on for about 6 months, I felt it was time to delve into it a little deeper. If she was doing something behind my back, she was being pretty careful about it. My company issued each of us a portable GPS device to track job locations. Next Wednesday, before heading to work, I turned it on and placed it on the floor under the driver's seat of Marcy's Volvo. The batteries were supposed to last for 14 hours. It was hard for me to focus at work all day. I thought about what I was going to find. After another great dinner, I felt confident that my plan would yield the results I sought but hoped not to receive. Marcy didn't suspect anything when I left the house to run to the auto parts store. After replacing the GPS batteries, I was on my way. The GPS first led me to a pharmacy a few miles from home, then straight to the airport. I managed to get within a meter of where she parked her car. Then the route led home, stopping by the grocery store on the way. Now I had to endure a whole agonizing week, waiting for the next move. On the way, I stopped by the auto parts store where they sold door latch mechanisms. When I got back home, everything was fine. Marcy and the kids were watching TV, and as always, we seemed normal, like one big happy family. I took a shower and checked the hamper. At the bottom lay a set of light olive silk lingerie. Before heading downstairs to join the family, I peeked into her lingerie drawer. There, behind her everyday underwear, were several sets of fashionable items. They weren't new. I carefully closed the dresser drawer and went downstairs to sit with my loving wife. I had no trouble taking the next Wednesday off. I found a good spot at the back of the hotel parking lot where nobody would notice me and settled in. A cooler with water and some snacks would suffice. I figured she'd arrive there after lunch, but I couldn't be sure. Finally, after my 10th Sudoku puzzle, I noticed the Volvo pulling into the same spot as the week before. She just sat in the car for over 10 minutes until a silver cruiser parked about 7 meters away. He got out of the car and went up to room 121. As soon as he unlocked and opened the door, Marcy quickly approached and went inside. It took me less than 10 seconds to open his car door and another 10 to retrieve the registration number from the glove compartment. I couldn't decide whether to wait for them to come out or just leave. Since I needed to relieve myself, I left. Todd Marshall appeared to be in his 30s. He was handsome and well-dressed. I could understand why he attracted Marcy. He had everything I wasn't and never would be. On the way home, I stopped by the address listed in the registration book. It was a small, modest house in a well-established neighborhood. It didn't look like a family home, and there were no signs of children nearby. It seemed he wouldn't have trouble with women his age or younger, and I couldn't understand why he wanted Marcy. I guess she was much more desirable than I had thought. Now I didn't know what to do. On Sunday, the kids weren't home, and Marcy and I were relaxing with the newspaper. She seemed a bit tense and finally spoke up. "John," she began, "is something wrong? You seem a bit distant lately." I wanted to evade her question. I'm really bad at confrontation. "I'm fine. I guess I'm just tired. Working overtime to save up for the kids' college is starting to take its toll." "You've always worked long hours. I thought you were used to it." "Sort of, but then I worry about a lot of things. I worry I'm not attentive enough to you. I worry I'm not the best husband I could be. Making good money is important, but it's not everything." "Are you happy?" "Of course I'm happy. I have a lovely home, 2 wonderful kids, a great husband, and a new Volvo. What more could a woman want?" For some reason that angered me. I never yelled at my wife or criticized her in any way, but hearing her talk about how everything was great while knowing she was cheating on me was too much. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. "John, what's wrong? What did I say that upset you?" "I'm sorry, was I that obvious?" "Yes, I've never seen you so upset. Are you sure there's nothing else bothering you that you want to talk about? I've always been here for you. How can I help?" It was more than I could bear. The stupid thing was, I was to blame. I didn't want this. I wanted everything to be as it was. I wanted peace and tranquility. I stood at the door, staring straight at her. "Just answer one question for me, and answer it truthfully. As long as you're truthful, everything will be fine. If you lie or evade the question, I don't know what will happen." "Of course, everything's fine. I've never lied to you, John. Why would I lie now? I've never doubted your faithfulness, and I've always felt you were honest and truthful in our relationship, but I have to ask. Okay. Who do you meet at the hotel every Wednesday and why?" Marcy stood there, mouth slightly agape, landline most of the time. Looking at me, the question seemed to shock her. She was nervous and awkward, her gaze darting around the floor and the room as if searching for an escape and knowing there wasn't one. Finally, she spoke softly and slowly. "I don't know why you're asking me these things. After all these years together, I'm disappointed that you don't trust me and that you could even think such a thing." I stood and looked at her, waiting for a response, but none came. "I guess that's my answer. I'll never bring this up again. I'm leaving for a while. Don't expect me." She was silent as I walked out the door, but as I got into the car, she started shouting for me to come back and talk. I felt like drinking. Marcy was in bed when I finally returned home. She didn't move or make a sound as I lay down next to her. The next morning she behaved as though nothing had happened. The boys didn't know anything was wrong, but between us, breakfast went on as usual, but quietly. I left for work without saying anything. Dinner that Wednesday was the same as before her affair. She wore regular clothes, and the food was tasty but not exceptional. I guess she hadn't seen her lover that day. A quick check of the laundry seemed to confirm my suspicions. There was only regular cotton underwear there. I decided I needed to keep a closer eye on what she was doing. Marcy bought a cell phone about 6 months ago, and I didn't. After a little looking around, I found out I could call a certain number and check the call log of her cell phone at any time, and it was updated within an hour. I couldn't see the cell phone bills because Marcy got the mail and paid everything from our joint account. I also realized that Marcy and I had a limited number of friends, so I had no idea what she was using the cell phone for. I always called from the landline. And so did the kids. Marcy also used landline when she was home. Just in case. I bought my own prepaid cell phone. No bills, no contracts, and it was cheap for what I needed it for. I could check her call log at any time and from anywhere. Almost all her calls on her cell phone were to the same number. She called Todd 8 times and he called her 6 times since I encountered her on Sunday. I was dying to know what they were talking about, but I had no idea how to arrange it. Over the next 3 weeks, they continued to talk a couple of times a day. Then one Wednesday, we had a great dinner. The black dress lay at the bottom of the basket. On the morning of the following Wednesday, the GPS was in the car again. Marcy wasn't going back to the hotel. The navigator pointed straight to David Drive, 321, Todd Marshall's house. At least that evening, we had a good dinner. I couldn't accuse her anymore of meeting someone at the hotel. The next Wednesday, I took the day off work and went to the hotel. I grabbed a couple of bottles of water, a sandwich, and a Sudoku. Finally, I managed to use the mobile phone for something practical. I called a taxi. It dropped me off at the bus stop near Todd's house. Marcy showed up about 2 hours later. She parked the Volvo half a block from his house and walked straight into the lobby door. I had a spare key to her precious car. It took me about 20 minutes to drive to the hotel and park the Volvo exactly where she parked it a month ago. Just in case, I wiped it down and locked it before heading home. Marcy didn't know I'd be home, and I watched twice as the silver cruiser passed by the house before dropping her off at the corner. My car was parked in the driveway, and I'm sure that caused them some concern. "What are you doing home, John?" "The bulldozer broke down around 2 o'clock, and they just told me to take the rest of the day off." "Well, I have bad news. I was at the mall and the Volvo got stolen." "Was it locked?" "Yes, it was locked. I wasn't there long at all, and when I came out, it was gone. I called the police and reported it immediately. I would have called you, but I didn't think you'd be home." "What did you buy?" "Nothing. I was looking at TVs for Christmas. Anyway, it doesn't matter." "How did you get home?" "The police dropped me off." "Oh." I didn't see the car. She gave me an irritated look and started up the stairs. "Marcy, how about I order pizza for dinner?" "That's fine. Guess where I found the red lace laundry on Friday evening when I got home from work?" "The Volvo was in the garage." "I see you got your car back." "Yeah, they called earlier today." She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cup of coffee in front of her. Her fingers clenched the cup handle as if she had an obsessive idea. She looked disheveled and tired. She avoided looking at me or acknowledging my presence more than necessary. I went upstairs and took a shower. When I came back down, she hadn't moved. I sat on the couch in the living room and picked up the newspaper while she put the cup in the sink. She started up the stairs. "Where did they find the car?" I asked. I turned away from her so she couldn't see the smirk on my face. She paused for a moment, then continued up to the bedroom. "It was a bad move on my part. I should never have said that. It wasn't like me and it was cruel. I always regretted it." That night, we ordered pizza again, and I explained to the boys that their mom wasn't feeling well. Wednesday dinners returned to normal, as did her attire. I tracked the phone calls, but there were none. She wasn't getting as much out of that cell phone as it cost her. As weeks passed without changes, I began checking the phone records less and less. The situation between Marcy and me deteriorated to the point where we were just living in the same house. There was nothing intimate, no kisses goodnight or good morning. Our conversations were limited to what was necessary for functioning. It was a terrible time, but it was destined to go downhill. I did my usual check of her phone usage, and then about 3 months later, I accidentally checked and found new phone calls. I was crushed. I didn't expect the situation to improve, but I hoped it wouldn't get worse. He reached out to her first, and then there were several exchanges of calls in a short period of time. I prayed it never came to this, but my prayers went unanswered. I noticed a slight change in her mood and realized she was up to something sinister. I returned to checking the phone activity daily. Todd Marshall worked at the local Chrysler dealer. On Wednesday morning, I wandered into the showroom, knowing he wouldn't be there. I found out that Todd had Wednesdays off. Pretending to browse cars, I walked down the corridor towards the bathrooms and the employee lounge. In the lobby, there was a display case with bowling trophies and a photo of Todd with the rest of the bowling team. One of the salesmen walked out of the room. "Wow, guys, you've assembled an impressive collection," I said, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, we're really proud of the team. We don't know much about softball, so this makes up for it." "Where does your team bowl?" "Crystal Lanes in Elkmont every Friday night." "Are you interested in a specific lane?" "No, I'm just here for maintenance." I spent a few more minutes surveying the exhibition hall before heading to Crystal Lanes. The main building was a long steel structure set perpendicular to the road. Along one side was a parking lot surrounded by a row of trees and shrubs. The lighting in the parking lot seemed a bit sparse, which suited my plans. I went inside and checked the league bowling schedule. Friday evening, the boys had a school football game. Marcy didn't like going to the games, and she didn't seem eager to go with me anyway. That gave me an excuse to leave the house. Marcy was sitting at the kitchen table when I came down for a late breakfast. Her eyes were red and swollen. It was clear she had been crying quite a bit. When I entered the room, she looked at me with a hatred I had never seen before. She didn't say anything as I made coffee. She left the room and went upstairs. I sat down and reached for the newspaper lying in front of her. The police found Todd Marshall's body in the Crystal Lanes parking lot last night. It appears he was the victim of a brutal robbery as he left the bowling alley after a league game. His wallet was found in a dumpster a block away from the crime scene. Money and credit cards were missing from the wallet. At the moment, the police have no leads or suspects. His watch and credit cards went down the storm drain, and I doubt they'll ever resurface. The timing was perfect. I showed up at the boys' football game when it started and was there when it ended. I drove the boys to and from the game. I felt sorry for Marcy, but I felt nothing for Todd. Marcy cried all day in the bedroom. I didn't try and talk to her or comfort her. If I confronted her face to face, she wouldn't be able to explain why she was crying without giving herself away. I didn't want to mess up like last time. At night, I slept on the couch. Marcy, as usual, made Sunday breakfast. She looked fresh and rested, but she was somber and lethargic. She hadn't done anything wrong, but she wasn't the same lively person anymore. She politely asked the boys how the football game went and apologized for not being able to come. There was no eye contact between us. I didn't insist. We spent most of the day with the boys, cutting grass, raking and trimming. Lunch and dinner were tense for me, but the boys didn't seem to notice. That night, I tried to sleep in bed but ended up back on the couch. Inside Todd's wallet was a small photo of Marcy standing naked in a room. She had a wide smile on her face as she posed for it. She looked very attractive in the photo, except it wasn't intended for my viewing. I put the photo in the underwear drawer beneath her clothes. Our life went on as normally as possible. Marcy did everything she usually did, but it seemed she spent more time on each task. She was constantly organizing and rearranging things. The meals were tasty but never quite lived up to Wednesday specials. One day, I checked the underwear drawer. The photo and special laundry were gone. She never said anything about the photo. I don't know what happened to it at all. This week, the house at 321 David Drive was put up for sale by Todd's brother. It took some time, but I finally convinced the bank to allow me to make mortgage payments in my name only. Then, I started renting it out. We never talked about what happened. If we didn't talk about it, we could pretend it never happened. We were both deceiving ourselves. One day during a lull in our conversation, she turned to me. "John, do you think we should consider getting a divorce?" It was a serious question, and it was the first time something like that had been brought up. "No, not yet. Wait until both boys finish high school, and then everything will be fine." She seemed to smile as if the option I presented to her was better than nothing at all. I left everything as it was. Time passed, and everything remained more or less the same. Marcy became more and more like someone obsessed, living in her own world. The boys and I didn't confront her. I think they knew something was going on, but they denied it, just like Marcy and I did. Although we slept in the same bed, there was no intimacy. We tolerated each other for some unknown reason. Troy graduated from school and went to the University of Pennsylvania. Jason had already been accepted and would leave soon. I decided it was time to meet with a lawyer. On the day Jason left for college, I found Marcy sitting at the kitchen table, reading advertisements. "Are you looking for something specific?" I asked. "I think I need to find a place to live." "Don't worry. I'm giving you the house. It will be paid off, and you'll have ownership rights under your name for free. You'll also receive $4,000 from the current account and $177,000 from savings account. You can keep or sell the house. It's up to you. If you decide to keep it, you better look for a job. Also, you need to transfer the utility bills to your name by the end of the month." She looked at me in amazement. I don't think she expected what I offered. "Here are the papers, sign them, and everything will be settled in 60 days. You can have a lawyer review them if you want." Marcy grabbed a pen from the kitchen drawer and signed both documents without reading a word. She handed them back to me. "Oh, thank you." Short-term tenants left Todd's old house, and I gradually moved my things there over the past few weeks. I bought the house furnished since Todd left it that way. All I had to do was move my personal belongings and buy a few new small appliances. The last items from the dresser drawers and closet were quickly tossed into several black garbage bags to be taken to my new place. Marcy sat at the kitchen table, watching as I loaded and unloaded the truck. When I finally finished, I leaned in and gently kissed her on the cheek. I said goodbye, and she smiled with tears in her eyes. The next year flew by quickly. After the divorce was finalized, Marcy put the house up for sale. It sold quickly. Both boys did well in school. I was glad I prepaid for their education. I settled into the new house. I didn't see Marcy anymore or speak to her. I don't know where she moved to, but once or twice a month, I see her Volvo slowly driving past the house on David Drive. I don't know if she thinks about me or Todd. Marcy never apologized for what happened. She never apologized or gave me any explanations. I never asked. One of the accounting clerks at work invited me to her house for dinner on Friday night. I think I'll go. What do you think about it? Write in the comments and subscribe to my channel. Bye.